All right, so ready for another deep dive.
Always.
Today it feels like we're diving into something that's unfortunately more and more relevant these days.
Yeah.
We're talking about the negativity, the sometimes outright attacks that women in politics are facing.
It's a pretty major issue. I mean, it's not just about individual women being impacted. It's about how this affects, like, democratic participation as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to kind of unpack this a bit, we're going to be looking at an interview with a woman named Ursula Owusu Ekuful.
Okay.
She's a member of parliament in Ghana.
Interesting.
She's also, she's got a pretty impressive resume. She's a lawyer, a women's rights advocate, and a human rights activist.
Wow, that's a lot of hats to wear.
Yeah, she wears a lot of hats. And this interview, it was with a local news outlet, rainbowradioonline.com. And it really, you read it and you're like, wow, okay, this is powerful stuff.
Yeah. The things that she talks about in that interview, unfortunately, they're not unique to Ghana, right? Yeah. This is something that's unfortunately a global trend we're seeing more and more of.
And it's tough to read. Like, she's very direct, very upfront about the kinds of attacks that she and other women in politics face.
Right.
Insults, people just trying to, like, vilify them, outright lies, accusations. And, the thing is, it's like, where's the evidence?
Yeah.
Where's the substance to back any of this up? It just makes you wonder, is this just part of politics as usual?
I think it's easy to brush it off like that, to say, oh, it's just politics, it's a rough game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case here. When you look at research, when you start to really dig into what's happening, you see a much more disturbing pattern emerging.
Okay.
Women in politics are not just facing negativity, they're being targeted. They're being specifically targeted for online harassment and abuse. And what's even more troubling is that a lot of this abuse, it's designed to discredit them, but in ways that are specifically tied to their gender.
I see. So you said disproportionately, or like they're being disproportionately targeted.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like? How does that play out?
So think about it this way. If we're talking about, let's say, a man in politics and a woman in politics.
Okay.
Now, studies show that the woman, she's far more likely to receive comments that focus on her appearance, her family life.
Got it.
Is she married? Is she a mother? Things like that.
Okay.
Rather than the comments focusing on, say, her stance on a particular policy,
okay,
her voting record, stuff that actually relates to her job.
Yeah.
It's really a way of undermining her authority by zeroing in on traits that honestly have nothing to do with her ability to govern.
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to, reinforce these really old stereotypes.
Yeah.
The whole a woman's place is in the home kind of thing.
Exactly. And that kind of thinking, it's not harmless, right? It's not just words. This kind of abuse has real consequences. It can make women think twice, maybe hesitate to get involved in politics at all.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. We need their voices. Their perspectives are crucial.
Absolutely. And, it's kind of a double whammy, right? Like you were saying, they're facing all this negativity, this abuse, all this scrutiny. But at the same time, like Owusu Ekuful says, this is happening when we're encouraging women to participate in politics.
Right.
It's like, come on in, be part of the process.
Yeah.
But, oh, by the way, be ready for a level of, like, scrutiny and abuse that your male counterparts probably won't even have to deal with.
It's such a blatant double standard, and it's something we see happening all over the world. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton during the 2016 U.S. election. The vitriol, the attacks, a lot of it was just so nasty, so personal.
Yeah, totally. And, Julia Gillard, when she was prime minister in Australia, she went through something very similar,
Yeah.
constant online harassment. And so much of it, again, focused on her, her appearance, her personal life.
Right.
It really highlights how global this problem is.
And I think another thing that Owusu Ekuful brings up, which is really important, is the whole issue of lies and these baseless accusations.
Yeah.
We're living in this age of disinformation. Fake news runs rampant. And research is showing that women in politics, they're often the main targets of these coordinated smear campaigns. It's another tactic, another way to try to delegitimize them, make people question their authority, and ultimately discourage them from engaging in the political process.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem here. We've talked about the research. We've heard from Owusu Ekuful. What does this mean for us? What do we do with this?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think the first step, honestly, is awareness. We need to be able to recognize these attacks for what they are.
Okay.
These aren't just random acts of negativity. These are calculated attempts to silence voices that are often challenging the status quo.
Right, and to, ultimately maintain existing power structures.
Exactly.
So what can we do? I mean, is it as simple as just calling it out when we see it?
I think that's a big part of it, calling it out. Challenging those sexist tropes and assumptions, holding people accountable for what they say, for what they post online. Those are all good starting points. And beyond that, we need to support those organizations that are actively fighting this fight,
Yeah.
the ones working to combat online harassment, promote media literacy.
Yeah.
But I think it's also worth thinking about, what role do social media companies themselves play in all of this?
Okay, interesting.
Could they be doing more?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Like, what's their responsibility?
Exactly.
Because on the one hand, these platforms, they give people a voice, which can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they can also be breeding grounds for this kind of abuse, this targeted harassment.
Right.
And, maybe that's something for all of us to think about. The role that social media plays, whether it's perpetuating or mitigating this problem. Right. So on that note, we've explored, we've really delved into this issue of negativity, abuse, attacks, all directed at women in politics. We've looked at research. We've heard from Ursula Owusu-Ekuful.
Yeah.
And the question remains, what can we do individually, collectively, to combat this trend?
It's a conversation that needs to continue.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us on this really crucial deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.